RC. How y'all doing? This is going to be the radio setup and buying process of the Arrows T-28 1100mm Trojan. Alright, now you just watched the unboxing assembly video. I got the prop on. Off camera I made sure the prop was balanced. I have a video. If you like, I'll put, you know what, I'll just go ahead and put a link in the description of this video on how to balance a prop. It's very important. And I've already got my battery mounted where I'm going to have it. I did notice that the ESC is just kind of flopping around. So what I did is took some two-sided tape. You can see up in there or not. Took some two-sided tape and Gorilla Tape, and I've got that ESC mounted down on run alongside there of the battery. And there's a decent gap of space between the two of them, so they'll get plenty of cooling. Not a very big model, simple and very easy to handle. All right, so I got the model all put together. Do not have the elevator connection yet because I haven't bound the aircraft. So let's go ahead and get the receiver mounted. Now you want to put, there's a great place to put the receiver, okay? Your ESC, your battery, your motor, all that's up here, okay? Brake tracks are inside the wing, and so there's a big flat spot right here. There's very little electronics around that, so that's a good spot, and everything reaches it. So that's a good spot for me to mount my my radio. All right, now this is a 7-channel Lemon RX Gen 2. Now the Gen 1s had issues; they had some range issues, but these Gen 2 Lemon RXs are just as reliable and have just as good range, if not better range. I've had than the Spectrum stuff, and it is Spectrum or DSMX protocol. So any any of your Spectrum transmitters will work with these Gen 2s, and these and they're 7 channels. They are 7 actual channels plus a bind, and they have a bind plug on there. So great little receiver, and they're like, you can get them from 15 to 20 bucks each. So very good value, and they're a working 7 channels. They have, you know, gear, flaps, and then another auxiliary channel. So if you had reverse function or something like that, or an additional gyro, you know, then you could use it. All right, but it's still the same hookup. Channel 1 is always going to be throttle. That's in the Spectrum world. Okay, so find channel 1 on here, and it's even, and they're labeled on this, which is nice, labeled channel 1. And then your second channel is always going to be your aileron. So look for your labeled, you know what, it may not be. Okay, yes, it's the one double wire that's not labeled, and that's going to be channel 2. And remember, just like with the Spectrum, the top of the receiver where the label is, that's where the yellow, your lightest polarity is going to be. Okay. Next is going to be elevator. You only have the one elevator lead. Then you're going to have rudder. Okay. And then you're going to have your gear. Okay. Before you hook up the gear, you're going to want to find, should be a wire coming out of the front. Here it is. There should be a wire coming out of the very front that has a single gear. Okay, so you're going to grab your triple that says gear on there. It says gear, and there's 3 of them. It's the only one that's like that. It says gear, and you're going to hook up put your gear on that little pigtail there. Remember, light to light, dark to dark is always your polarity. So plug them in, okay? Then you'll take the gear, it should look like that. You can have all 3 of them hanging there. Then you're going to take that gear, light side up, or the top of the servo lead is going to go to the top of the receiver. Top of the receiver is always the label, okay? Plug that in. And then last but not least is flaps. So if you have a Spectrum style receiver after all is said and done, see how all the leads on top of that receiver, it's all light. That's all the light, because all the dark is on the bottom. Okay, all the light, it's all yellow and white across the top there. Okay. Now you want to mount your receiver. I've already got the two-sided tape on the back of the receiver. By the way, I'm using the Gorilla two-sided tape. It boasts that it can hold up to like 50 pounds. I don't think I need 50 pounds of holding power, but it definitely is there if I need it. Get your wires out of the way. Make sure you don't get the wires underneath the tape, underneath the model, and press that receiver, seat that tape in real well. Okay, now I have my receiver mounted. Okay, now here's an important step. See how I got my antennas are just going any other way? I'm going to run one this way, okay, and then the other one I'm going to let it just kind of stay facing that direction, or it's facing that way. You want your wires to be at a 90 degree. In any way, shape, or form, they need to be at a 90 degree angle. So, in order to achieve that, I'm going to take some Scotch tape. That's why I love this stand, so I can keep it up here and just move it any way I want to. Okay, I'm going to take this one lead, I'll put it directly on that antenna piece. I'm going to lay that right down there alongside there. Then I'm going to take this other piece, and I'm going to show you. Grab a hold of that antenna, put it directly on it. Move them other wires out of the way. All right. And see, now I have one antenna going directly this way and one antenna going directly this way. That way they are at 90 degrees from each other. Okay, now I'm going to take a little itty bitty zip tie, and we're going to clean all that nest up a little bit. Okay, take my multicolored, take my zip tie. Just going to fish it underneath all this big conglomeration of wires. I'm just going to try to grab as much of the wires as I can in one, fell swoop, basically, and just kind of tidy this up just a little bit. Anchor them down, okay, and that way they won't slide around so much, and it just makes it cleaner. Just makes it cleaner. And that's something you want to have to do. Just something. I mean, I'm sure those guys can come in there with conduit and all kinds of things and make it just absolutely gorgeous. But I just want everything kind of out of the way and where it's not going to flop around. Okay? You have that big cavity there that you can shove stuff down in there too. So that way, it's just a little bit cleaner. It's not going to get snagged up when I take the battery in and out. Okay? Alright. We got the plane together. We are now ready to set up. Now, if you've never set up a profile on a plane, you need to do this before you start. And we're going to go over that right now. Now, depending on how many models you have on your NX or Spectrum, DX series, NX series, IX series, if you got a lot of models, it takes a little longer for it to boot up. So let's go on in here. Let me move the camera around just a touch. I'm not trying to get through this so fast. It's just not hard. It's not hard. Just follow me along. We're going to add a new model. Now this has no kind of gyro or anything special to the model. It's going to be just straight receiver, Just straight model flying in the sky. No gyro, no safe. Just plain Jane flying, which actually the way I like it, to be honest with you. All right, we already collected them. This is the model type. So obviously, it's going to be an airplane, right? Okay, then we're going to name it, and we're going to name it A. There's a latency on the window, on the screen versus what I'm showing you here. AAROWS space, okay, RC, okay, space, okay, T. That's when we go to a special character here. Okay, and then back down to your, you gotta do this with your, you know, your F-16, your T-28. Then you go back here to the numbers again. 28. All right, and get back out of that. Okay, now, this is important. Aircraft type. You have one lead that controls both ailerons, one lead that controls both flaps. So, in essence, you have one aileron and one flap. So that's what you want to pick. Okay? While you're here, go ahead and select your image. Go to standard image. Now, unless you have somehow figured out how to load up a bunch of images, this is where you'll find something that is close for you, remind you of what you're flying there. So let's go with that right there. Okay? Back out. All right, back out of here, and there's there's your basic model. Now go to your function list now, and go to throttle cut. Now, set it where it's searching for it. Now I like using H, which is back here is H. Okay. All right. So that is the basic profile. You've already got your throttle cut ready. Got your basic model set up. Now it's time to bind the aircraft. Now this procedure works with these Lemon RX receivers. Also works with all the push button Spectrum receivers. All of them have the push button bind. Okay. All right. There's a big B on there. You want to hold it down. See how it's flashing? She's searching for a signal. Okay. So we're going to go to bind. Yes. Bind. All right, it said bind complete. All right, let's turn our volume up a little bit.
Volume 100.
All right, so we now have communication. Let's verify that we have communication. And that everything's going the right way. Let me pull back on the elevator. Uh-oh. Got nothing. My ailerons are going the wrong way. But I've got no elevator control. So what's going on here? Let's find out what's going on. So troubleshoot. Okay. Looking at my, all right, my elevator's plugged in, right? Okay. So that means, oh, duh. Look at the servo. See the servo's working? Duh. My dumb butt forgot that we haven't hooked that up. Well, I'm glad I don't want to undo that big nest of wires. All right. We know, because I have bound this up, and I know that the elevator servo is in the neutral position. Let's see what what they call out in the manual for hooking the elevator up. Doesn't say. It looks like the outermost hole. Outermost hole on the servo arm, and then looks like the outermost hole on the control arm. So here's my elevator servo. I'm going to go to the outermost hole, which is going to give me the most throws from that servo. And you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook that up. And looky here. Look at how long my throttle cuts on, so I'm not worried about the prop. But look how long this servo, the clevis and everything is in relation to the holes. I got at least a good ½ inch, or maybe a third of an inch. So, but that's actually better. It's good to have too much and not enough, because that's an entirely different set of headaches there. Okay, so I got to turn that in. So I'm just going to undo it because it makes it easier. So I'm going to turn this clevis to the right, which is going to make it shorter. A couple turns. All right, hook it back up on that outermost hole. And that is a lot closer to where I believe I want to be. Okay. Much closer. All right, so need, I think, a couple more turns in, leaving it hooked up this time. And holding the end of the elevator to where it's trim, holding it still, where it's in the neutral position. That looks like that's just about it. Maybe one more should do it. Okay. And I'm going to put that on the middle. I'm putting that on the middle hole on that elevator. And that gives me an awful lot of movement. So we're going to, that's giving me plenty of movement. So I think I'm going to anchor that down right there. Slide that fuel tubing back up over it. Now that fuel tubing is there just to keep it locked in. As you can see it right there, just slide, but don't go all the way up against it, just right off from it, and that'll keep it from binding. If you're right on top of it, then it's going to bind on you. Okay. It's a nice little model. Okay. So now, let's take a look at our, now we know we got communication. We know all of our control services work. Okay, why is that binding? There's nothing really in the way. Okay. Well, it may be where I've got that ESC. Or maybe it doesn't like the battery there. All right, we'll figure that out in a minute. All right. Let's go back and address our movement. Right aileron. That's wrong. Elevator's right. Rudder's right. Okay. So we know we need to reverse our ailerons. So you're going to go to servo setup. Okay. And you're going to go to reverse. Find it. Up. Reverse. Over at ailerons. Hit it. All right, now look at that aileron over there. Right, left, right, left. Up elevator, down elevator, right rudder, left rudder. Okay, all right, I like that. So, now, let's change this down to flap settings. Okay, I'm going to assign a switch. I like D. Okay. Go to our flaps, and this would be flaps up, but see the flaps are down a little bit. So that means we got to figure out which way make them come up. Okay, so negative because they're starting to rise now. The negative on here. It's going to probably be negative 100. And they're all the way up. Okay. So if I go to the next position, watch. They went down. So that's position 1 now. So this is going to be takeoff flaps. I think I like the way they look. So I'm going to leave that at a positive 100%. And then for landing flaps, I'm going to go all the way to the bottom. And let's make that a positive. Let's look at positive 50. And, okay, that's a positive 50. And look at that from the rear. Okay, look at that from the front. Okay, with the model flying at you, you can't really see that until it's come down. So I think they need to come down a little bit more. You're trying, every Trojan I've seen, there's going to be a lot more. So we're going to go with a positive 100%. That looks a lot more like what I'm used to seeing with a Trojan. Okay, now for flat mix, I'm not going to worry about the flat mix just yet, but I am going to change the speed so it's not so abrupt. Lots of people use the 2-second. I like using the 3-second. Okay, so watch this. Watch the flap. This is a 3-second deployment. Okay, that's flaps up. That's going to be takeoff flaps. And that big barn door is landing flaps. So we're going to leave that alone. Okay. Okay, now let's take a physically look at your gear first before we try to deploy it. Okay, they would have messed up on the plane stand. So let me turn it over. Okay. Gear is always picked by your spectrum. Your rate almost always going to be a two-position switch. In this case, A. And look at that. They come right up. I like them doors there. And they go right back down. Back out again. All right. So now we can lose the plane stand. Set the model flat. Okay, let me turn. Okay, remember I picked H. All right. I got pretty much. Let me make sure. Let's just go over that one more time. Make sure that I've got almost immediate. So let's go ahead and calibrate that ESC real quick. And when you do that, your transmitter's on, your model's bound. Okay? Unplug the battery. Put your throttle cut off as if the throttle would be on. Move your throttle all the way up to full throttle. Plug in your model, hold it, okay, all right. With the throttle all the way up, you heard them 2 immediate beeps, and then there was a pause. After those 2 immediate beeps, you go all the way back. We don't have a gyro or anything that we're waiting to hear. Now, if you had a gyro, you'd wait for the wings to do their dance, and then you'd pull the throttle all the way back. In this case, it's just the 2 beeps letting you know, okay, we recognize the throttle's on, pull your throttle back. So now, yes, I barely have to touch it, and I'm getting throttle response. So, that is now calibrating, okay? So, let's go to our throttle cut. I'm going to turn my throttle on, all the way down, and she cuts off. So, that means that the throttle cut that I picked, which was H, on some models, on some models you'd have to change that to a negative 110 or a negative 120 or a negative 130 in order to get that prop to stop. But you go down, you go negative until that prop stops, and that's where you set your throttle cut at. Now, This one stopped at negative 100, so I'm good. All right, so let's talk about rates. What I'm going to do, we're going to assign, okay, where am I doing? Okay, rates and expo. I like using my G switch. I know it's a 3-position switch, but I like, it's just where my muscle memory is G. So the first thing, you got the rates and expo. You got to pick your switch. I like G. Okay. When I'm holding my transmitter with the switch up, to me it's in its highest position, so that's where I put my high rates. Okay, so I'm going to make this my high rates. 100% throws on the aileron and 30% expo. Okay, then I'm going to take the switch. I'm going to go down to the second position. Okay, notice how it cleared back to 100 or back to 0. I'm going to make my low rates 70% with 30% expo. Okay, now I'm going to go to elevator. First thing you got to do, you got to pick your switch, G. Okay, put it in your high position, which I like to pick high first. Put in my expo. Go to my second position. Notice how it changed. Take that down to 70 with 30% expo. Okay. Now we'll go up here to rudder. Flip the switch. Pick the switch. G. High. 100%. 30% expo. Down to second position. Take it down. With a rudder, however, I like a lot of rudder. So I'll take it down to 90 and 30% expo. All right. Got our throttle cut figured. We know all of our control surfaces are going the right way. Let me show you what the high rates look like. Okay. Remember, my throttle cut is on. Okay, high rates for the elevator and the ailerons. Okay. Low rates, which is 70%, ailerons and elevator. Now, still 90% rudder, and then high rates, 100% rudder. All right. Hush. All right. Now, if you're looking at the model, and if you're looking real close, you can kind of tell that this flap doesn't go all the way up. Okay. However, it's perfectly flush with the side of the plane here, with the fuselage here. There's actually a structure there. Okay. Make sure you can see that. It's perfectly flush. Okay. But both of my ailerons, then, that means that they're slightly up. Okay? So you can kind of tell how that is slightly up. Look at the other side. Notice how it's just slightly up. So what I want to do, we're going to mechanically get that perfectly trimmed. Now the factory probably did that to give you a little bit of, I guess, differential. Okay, but I don't like that. I like everything, when I'm done, absolutely perfectly level. So you're going to take your fuel tube and slide it back, take your fingernails, okay, and unhook your clevis. Pop it out. Okay. Then you're going to, since I know that my flap is perfectly neutral, I'm going to hold my aileron to where the whole control surface is in sync with each other, okay? And then I'm going to either screw this clevis in or out until the line's perfectly hold on. I'm going to have to go in just a little bit to get that to line up. No, actually I've got to go out a little bit to the left. Okay. Okay. And that that was too much. That time it was too much. Still too much. Actually, I think I went the wrong way. Okay. Okay, that looks pretty straight now. Pretty straight with the whole thing. Okay, all the way from here, all the way out. And that's what I want. Now slide that fuel tubing back. But not right up on it. Okay, then we'll turn. We'll do the same thing to the other side. Something else I'm going to do is I'm going to get a little more, pull the fuel tubing back, take your nails, unpop here. Now if it's really, really tight, you can take a flathead screwdriver and wedge it and turn it and it'll pop it out. Just remember, you're limited on how many times you can pop this thing in and out before that little nubber on there wears off, and then you got to put a new clevis on there. All right, so I'm going to need, for that to hook up straight, the whole thing is straight, it's going to have to go in just a little bit. And this is just part of setting the model up. I'm going to go all the way to the bottom because I want the most control. I'll have to go in some more. Okay. That looks pretty good before I anchor that down. So we'll go out one time. Yeah, that looks great. Okay, now when you look at those, this is how you mechanically are trimming something. Look at them ailerons now. They are perfectly level with that flap. And that flap is perfectly level with the structure on the side of the fuselage. So now I know that I'm in good shape. Now, I want more movement out of that rudder. Okay? Let me look at the rudder on the nose steering. Oh, that's plenty. But I want more on my actual rudder. So, if that's the case. Well, they've got it on the furthest hole out. Okay, on the rudder. They want that's basically in a beginner type position. But I want more movement. So I'm going to turn it in, and I'm going to go to the furthest hole in, keeping that rudder level, straight. Okay, it's turned just a little bit. So we're going to take that and turn that out. Okay. Place it on the top of the hole. Your little pin there on top of the hole that you want to put it into. Okay. And then look down that rudder. Is that perfectly straight? Okay. Do you see any, when you look straight down, do you see any rudder on either side? Okay, so if it's perfectly straight, let me look back here at it. That looks pretty darn good. I'm going to go ahead and anchor that down. Slide the fuel tubing back up over, but not all the way up on it. And now I have a lot more rudder control authority. Happy with my elevator. Happy with my rudder. And let's check those again. Right, left, up, down, right, left. And my flaps are working, gear is working. All right, and we've set our rates for high, 100% or 30% expo. Got our low rates of 70%, 30% expo. But I'm thinking I can't have that battery all the way up in there. The canopy doesn't want to fit down right. So, and I don't want to lose my canopy mid-flight. So put the canopy back on there. What is binding? Something is binding. It's just the battery itself. The battery is too thick because it's too big of a battery. Well, I'm going to have to go. We'll have to go. It's too thick this way. let me grab a 2200. A different one. And see if it doesn't make it happier. All right. All right, this is just a generic, plain Jane 2200. Now, this model also has an XT60, so, and it's got 46% on it, so I can still use it. 2200 is what it calls for, and with a 25C. Well, this is a 2200 with a 25C. Put that all the way in, anchor it down, and plug it in. 3-cell count. Battery hatch fits in there perfectly. Okay, so let's now address the one thing that is the most important of all this. CG. Okay, in order to find your CG, always start with your manual settings. That's always a great starting point, and 99 or 90% of the time, not 99, but 90% of the time, is pretty well spot on. Okay, CG on this plane is 45 to 50 millimeters back from the leading edge of the wing. Actually, from the leading root. Now there's a difference. Leading edge is along here, but if you have any angle, then you go from the leading root, and this is from the leading root. So this angles in. This is where you're going to start your measurement here. 45 to 50. Take your ruler. Take your model. Turn it over. Because in this case, we're going to do it on the underside. Put the gear down. Okay. Put the plane stand back. Put the model on the plane stand. You're going to measure, we said 40 to 55, right? 45 to 50. So, starting here, I'm going to put the 5 on that corner, on that root. I'm going to put that on there, just like that. Take my marker. I know my 5 is on that root, and I'm going to mark my 0. Okay? Now I'm going to slide out to the 45 and mark my 0. And looky here where the structure is. On this line, this panel line here, on either side. So I can just eyeball it on this one because I know where it's at. It's on either side. Now to give you a larger point of reference, if you look, this plastic doubler here with its 2 holes, go straight out. Follow that line there, and that is your CG point. Okay? See, now to me that battery is too light. You need a heavier battery. So here I'm going to have a quandary here. I got to have a heavier battery, it still won't fit in there. So, what do I do? Well, you may have to carve some foam. Because CG is paramount. Okay? CG is paramount. We know it's there. We know it's right there. So I know that's going to be tail heavy. Okay. And that's where it shows it. So that battery is way too light. So I'm going to have to slide that battery. It's going to have to go. Okay, good. There's a firewall back there. Your battery's not going to touch the back of your motor. So now you can go all the way in there. Let's see if that doesn't help me at all. Still feels like she's going to be tail heavy. But not as bad. Let me see if I get that bigger battery. And let me see if I can't. If I shove it all the way up in there, if I don't get a better CG. Anchor that down. Plug it in. Huh, for whatever reason, that feels a whole lot better. Lot better. Yeah. In fact, it might even be a little nose heavy. Which a little nose heavy is better than tail heavy. Okay? Now let's face it. When it gets down to it, the tail heavy plane, well, still feels like it's something. Alright, move it back here. Well, we're going to get it. One way or the other. We're getting there. So this is the situation where the book CG is wrong. Okay. Amazing how touchy this is. Just got to keep moving to where you get where she balances. Right there. And that is about an inch back from the original CG. So with a 2700, so I know that if I put the 2700 all the way in, she's in there good, that my CG is actually going to be a little further back than that. Basically, pretty much on the right in front, right? It'll be right about there. Right about where these retracts are, right before the retracts. It'll be right there in front of the retracts. That's pretty much CG right there. Okay. Now, let's just see how she flies with retracts down. Alright, so now, that may make it. That's still pretty good. Alright, I'm good with that. Alright, so now I know that the recommended 2200, she may fly a little tail heavy on you. You got to put it as far forward as you can get it. Hopefully your 2200 is a little on the heavier side. Get as far forward as you can get it in order to get this CG as close to the factory as you can get it. Like I say, the factory setting is not always spot on, but usually it's pretty close. It gives you a starting point, and then you work it back and forth. So now I know that on this plane that my CG is actually right behind these wires, right there in that little triangular area, so you can feel that. You're not going to touch the plastic of the retract. It's just this little triangular area right there. That's where it CGs with 2700, and that's pretty good right there. You kind of feel the flap, feel the door. That's pretty good right there. Okay, we're going to run with that one. Okay. All right. Well, there you go. We talked about CG, that actually it's a little, about an inch back from the factory recommended. If you use a 2200, you got to put it all the way forward. We talked about how to calibrate the ESC. We got our control, all of our controls. We got our rates programmed in. I'm using 100% over 30% expo, along with a low rate of 70% throws with 30% expo. I showed you how to mechanically trim everything, and showed you what the receiver I'm going to use. This plane is not going to have any kind of gyro or anything, so it's just going to be just straight signal and the good Lord above and me flying around. So I am going to do the water scale. I'm going to try to do this water scale art on the side, but I'm not that good with it. But I'll do that off camera. But yeah, there you go. She doesn't have suspension. She's just a basic plane. But big shout out to Hobby Zone for sending this out to me. Good looking plane. What you see on video does not do the justice how bright this yellow is and this red. This is going to really show up in the sky. Well, folks, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. God bless y'all. And don't forget, faith, family, and friends, and Trojans.